The world's largest beer company, this bud's for you, is shuttering its last Bay Area facility. Closed. Let's get into it. Here we go. And how many of these stories are we going to do? All of them. All of them. In the San Francisco Chronicle. I almost said the Seattle Times. No, that's Seattle. Seattle's got its own set of issues. Seattle needs a big box of tissues for its own issues. Anheuser-Busch, largest beer company in the U.S., will close its last Bay Area brewing facility. Company notified the city of Fairfield that it will close its nearly 50-year-old brewery there in early 2026. Mayor Catherine Moy announced on Facebook, "Could you imagine being the mayor of like a really big industry in your town and having to say, guess what, folks? Yeah, got some bad news during the holidays," because I think this story came out maybe a week and a half ago. Got to let you in on something. Mayor here, Budweiser's leaving, and everybody goes, because how many hundreds of people, how many other businesses are dependent upon Budweiser for their income, for their livelihood, for putting bread, on their table, beer on their table? This Bud's for you. Let's watch a little video. I am not a Budweiser fan, but Bud Light back in the day used to be pretty good. I don't know what happened. The recipe changed. Stella Artois. That's the only real Bud product that I'll consider. Here we go.
Top stories this evening. It's the end of an era in Solano County. The country's largest beer company is closing its last Bay Area brewing facility. Anheuser-Busch is shutting down operations in Fairfield. Here's NBC's Jody Hernandez.
Shock and surprise. It's very sad for my coworkers and sad for everybody that's already retired.
Long time, but
here's the thing, though. You're in California. The beer industry has just been shellacked. And then you had that whole, remember after the pandemic, you had that whole marketing thing, right? Remember when you had that Bud Light had that marketing thing? Remember that issue? I'm not even going to say the name because you know who it is. We did tons of podcasts on that. Absolutely absurd. So shock and amazement, whatever she said. Okay. I mean, maybe, but this doesn't come out of left field at all. This is just what's happening.
Budweiser employee Christine Peters describes how many are feeling tonight after learning Fairfield's Budweiser brewing facility will be shuttering. Christine got the news when she came to work this morning. She's worked at the plant nearly her entire career.
Everything started here as a kid at 20 years old. I'm a few months away from retirement.
Anheuser-Busch notified the city of Fairfield this morning that the plant is among 3 locations across the country it's shutting down after conducting a thorough review. In a statement, it says it's shifting operations to other facilities, saying these changes will enable us to invest even more in our remaining operations and in our portfolio of growing industry-leading brands.
They say it's a done deal. They didn't want to talk to my city manager anymore or me. They just said it's done.
Fairfield's mayor calls Budweiser's departure a huge hit. She says it's been a great partner through the years, funding the city's first police dog, bringing its signature Clydesdale to town for special events, and providing good-paying jobs.
Anytime we needed something in the city, we could go to Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser right out here.
Obviously, it's a pretty cool thing to have a Budweiser brewery in your town. And a big part of Fairfield's identity has been that for a long time.
Fairfield's director of economic development says the city is already thinking about what's next. He says the facility has green power generation on site and a huge capacity.
Yeah, you notice that the windmill on top of the plant, and that first must be popping up over here. You going to repurpose the plant because you got a windmill on top? Okay. All right. Okay.
Water and sewer. Ideal for another manufacturing company to move in.
A lot of interest
in California. You want to put another manufacturing company in California in general. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah, whatever.
Solano County right now with shipbuilding possibilities, advanced manufacturing possibilities. And there you have a site that has a lot of the assets that are going to be necessary to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there.
The city says it's also
He's scraping for something. He's scraping for, what am I going to say here? How can I get this out? Is nobody looking in saying, look at all these businesses leaving California in general? And even if they're not leaving in entirety, because I'm sure Budweiser's got plants elsewhere in California, right? Maybe they don't. Look at the sheer number of businesses leaving California. Look at the sheer population loss, exodus that California is experiencing. Texas is benefiting. Florida is benefiting. Nevada is benefiting. The Carolinas are benefiting. And California just, there goes another biz. There goes Budweiser. See you later. I mean, they just lost Chevron, right? After 140 years, they lost Chevron because California is just so green and so progressive when it comes to clean energy that they've pushed damn near every refinery and big oil company out of their state. It's pure insanity. It's absolute insanity what California is doing on a policy basis that is driving these closures. And I get it. The beer industry, people are drinking less. Okay. But, you're not hearing of closures in other states that have been there for 50 years like this. You're hearing in Oregon, another prime example, Rogue Brewery. You've got an anti-business climate in Oregon as well. You got super high taxes. You got a bunch of the worst things for businesses. Super high real estate costs, downtown core that's been absolutely destroyed. I'm not saying any of that has to do here with California, but it's the general climate towards business in California that just makes it prohibitive to stay in business. And big corporate says, oh, we're done.
Focused on helping the 200 workers transition. Tonight, the workers and community are trying to soak in the news. The plant will be going dark early next year. In Fairfield, Jody Hernandez, NBC Bay Area News.
So let's skip down in our article to Anheuser-Busch announced the Fairfield shuttering alongside another plant closure in Merrimack, New Hampshire. Now, New Hampshire has, let's see if I get this right. On the federal level, they are Republican. On the local level, state level, they are Democrat. I believe that's how it goes. Newark, New Jersey, nearly a 75-year-old brewery in Newark, New Jersey, Democrat run, right? So you can't blame it all on politics, but you can blame it on business environment in California for sure. And what we're hearing is from Budweiser is that same corporate mantra, right? Which is, hey, we've had a great run. We really appreciate your patronage over the years, consumers and the business. You guys were great partners, but we need to consolidate during these troubling times. We're having a tough time making a profit. We got to shut this one down so we can better serve you in our other environments. And don't forget to check us out at Budweiser.com online. We'll see you there. Right? All this consolidation. And a lot of it has to do with California is no longer a viable state to do business in, period. And everybody knows it. But not one single mention of California's policies throughout any of the articles I could really come across. But it's just a known. It's a given. But there's so much in the media of businesses closing down that, it's a foregone conclusion. Oh, they closed down? All right. Bad business environment. And on top of that, the environment. And on top of that, the taxes. On top of that, just all of California's number ones that create a situation where businesses can't stay in business. These changes will enable us to invest even more in our remaining operations and in our portfolio of growing industry-leading brands, the company's statement reads. But, you hear from the mayor of Fairfield, and she's like, they just told me they're shutting down. Well, unfortunately, that's what corporate's got to do. Got to drop that hammer, right? And there's no easy way to do that. Hey, by the way, that job you had, yeah, not so much. Closures are another sign of continuing troubles in the beer industry. All right. Okay. Yep. Yes. And a poll this year from analytics company Gallup shows the percentage of Americans who are drinking alcohol has fallen to a record low. Drop that's been especially pronounced among younger people because they're really vain and alcohol makes you fat. And they don't want to do that. Instead, they'll jab themselves with Ozempic and call it good. When people do drink alcohol, they're frequently choosing alternatives to both beer and wine, an industry also in crisis such as canned cocktails. So during the summer, I might be out on the water, just a scooch, just a little bit. And the Seafair. Seafair is a massive event in Seattle. It's on Lake Washington. It is epic. We used to have the Miss Bud, literally the hydroplane. I started going there as a teenager. I was on the log boom at age 13 or 14. It was absolute chaos, and it was the best thing ever. It was the 70s. Probably the late 70s, early 80s is when I first started going to Seafair, and people were drinking Budweiser, right? Now people don't drink beer and they don't drink wine. They drink these White Claws, right? Drink White Claws. And you're like, that's not really a drink. That's kind of like that's a fake drink. It just is. And there's so many variants of that, but they're like 100 calories. You don't have all the stuff that makes you fat like beer, but beer just tastes better. Let's be honest. Beer is better, right? Beer is food. Brewers Association, a craft beer industry group, reported that U.S. beer production and imports were down 1% in 2024. Craft beer sales dropped 4% last year. Everything's going in the wrong direction. A boycott of its Bud Light brand over a social media post with transgender influencer, that's what I was mentioning, may have cost the company $1.4 billion in sales. Now that was during the whole we're going to revolutionize the business world with a bunch of woke nonsense, and that backfired. Yeah, that just straight up backfired. You know why it backfired? Because it was terrible marketing. Trying to tell a beer consuming group that, hey, transgender is going to represent you and trying to convince us that a transgender enjoys drinking Bud Light. Dylan Mulvaney. Like, what? You doing what? But that was the woke world of 2000 and what was that? Was that just last year? No, that was 2023, wasn't it? That was insanity. That was total insanity. You doing what? This article doesn't deal with it at all. This article doesn't deal with California's anti-business at all. In fact, it goes, update, modernize our U.S. manufacturing operations. Okay. Investing nearly $2 billion in our 100 facilities across the country. Now we got to consolidate. We're shutting down New Hampshire. We're shutting down New Jersey so that we can better serve you. Just that nonsense. But zero mention of, hey, this is another story of a continuation of why businesses are no longer viable in California. And, it's not just, it's not just that, right? Here's the last podcast I recorded, and Newsom's unpaid bills are costing Californians jobs. Let's see if I can get that all in there. There you go. Policy. Californian policy. That impacts every employer. California didn't pay back the $20 billion in federal funds for unemployment that every other state did when they got all that pandemic money. So now California is putting this on individual employers. You can catch that podcast separately. I'm not going to go into the details, but know that that's out there. You've got just policy after policy after policy that is going in the wrong direction in California. So just one thing after another. And I think the media has gotten so tired of pointing out, why is this happening in California to such an extent that they're basically just ignoring things and going, it's fine. It's all good. It's all good. it's kind of like all the refineries that have left. That has basically, people are looking around going, all right, we know that gasoline's going to go to the moon. It's going to go to the moon, but, we don't want to talk about it because, yeah, that's what you've got going on. That is going to happen. It's going to make everything super expensive in California, on top of businesses already closing, because all of the stuff that makes California expensive makes all their products expensive, like gasoline. You gotta truck that beer, that you gotta truck that, everywhere, right? It costs gas. So all of these things are linked together, and you're at a point where there's so many businesses closing right now in California that, media is they're absolutely just only focusing on the bare basics, which is, well, beer industry's in a slump. Nothing to do with California's governance or California's just absolutely squeezing business out of being able to conduct business. Let's not go there at all. I looked at a bunch of articles and I couldn't find one stating, hey, California's anti-business climate could have had something to do with it. And it did. It did. There's no way you can refute that it did. Crazy times we're in, my friends. All right. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. Love to have you subscribe, do all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.